A homeless man, exhausted and hungry, approached Shaquille O'Neal asking for just $1, without expecting anything more than a polite response. However, instead of turning him away, Shaq did something extraordinary, completely changing the course of his life. It was a scorching afternoon in Los Angeles, and the golden sky cast warm reflections on the bustling sidewalks of Hollywood Boulevard. Tourists roamed the streets, carrying luxurious bags from expensive stores. Amid this frenzy, sitting on a corner curb, was Dave, a homeless man with worn-out clothes and tangled hair. His small cardboard sign simply read, "Hungry. Any help is welcome." His stomach growled loudly, but he was already used to the feeling of emptiness. Passers-by completely ignored him. Some even crossed the street to avoid him. He looked at the few coins in front of him, sighing. Not even a slice of pizza seemed within reach that day. Already decided to give up and leave, an unexpected shadow fell over him. What happened next would change everything. Dave looked up and saw a tall man wearing a simple black hoodie and basketball shorts. Sunglasses and a cap partially concealed his face, but there was something undeniably familiar about his presence. The man crouched down, coming face to face with Dave. "Hey, buddy, how's it going?" he said in a deep, calm voice. Dave blinked, surprised. No one ever stopped to talk to him, especially someone who looked so different. He cleared his throat. "I've been better," he murmured, trying to keep his hopes in check. The man glanced at Dave's sign for a moment, then opened his wallet. Dave, resigned, expected to receive $1 or $2 if he was lucky, but instead the man smiled and said, "How about we do something better? Today is your day." Dave was incredulous. "Are you serious?" he asked, trying to figure out if it was a dream. The man just smiled and held out his hand to help him up. "Let's start with some good barbecue." Hesitant but encouraged by the sincerity in the man's eyes, Dave agreed. He stood up on trembling legs, still in disbelief. "I'm a fan of barbecue," Dave said, breaking the silence. As they walked together, Dave noticed that people around them stopped to take photos and watch them curiously. "Why are they staring so much?" he asked, wary. The man let out a light laugh. "They probably know who I am." When he lowered his sunglasses, Dave instantly recognized him. "Shaq!" he exclaimed, shocked. Shaquille O'Neal smiled warmly. Dave hesitated, casting a glance at the small pile of coins in his hand, while his stomach growled again. Embarrassed, he looked at Shaq once more. "You really don't have to do this," he muttered, almost ashamed. Shaq raised his eyebrows and shrugged casually. "It's just food, buddy," he responded with a warm naturalness. "Everyone deserves to eat. I know what it's like to go through hard times. There's nothing wrong with that." Dave slowly nodded, still apprehensive. "Okay, I guess we can go," he said, though he still couldn't fully believe what was happening. He felt something shift inside him when Shaq smiled and pointed to a nearby restaurant with a vibrant neon sign advertising, "Like BBQ, juicy ribs and pulled pork." The smoky and spicy aroma seemed to reach Dave from a distance, making his mouth water. It had been so long since he'd eaten something decent that he could barely remember the last time. "Barbecue sounds like a good idea," he said with a shy smile. "That's it. That's the spirit I like," Shaq exclaimed excitedly. "Let's go. It's on me." While they crossed the busy sidewalk, Dave couldn't help but feel uncomfortable at being watched. People around them whispered and even pulled out their phones to snap photos. He felt exposed, almost out of place next to a legend like Shaq. Noticing Dave's tension, Shaq gave him an encouraging pat on the back. "Don't mind them," he said in a low, calm tone. "Let them look. Today, you're with me, and with me, you're safe." When they reached the restaurant, Shaq held the door and motioned for Dave to enter first. The delicious smell of barbecue enveloped them, and Dave's stomach rumbled again. He tried to hide it, but Shaq heard and laughed. "Looks like someone's ready to demolish a plate," he joked as they walked up to the counter. The attendant, upon looking up and seeing Shaquille O'Neal, widened his eyes in surprise. "Wow, are you Shaq?" he asked in a trembling voice filled with excitement. Shaq raised his hand in a friendly gesture. "Yeah, that's me. But please, don't make a big deal out of it. We just came to eat in peace." The attendant nodded quickly, trying to maintain composure. "Sure, how can I help you?" Shaq turned to Dave. "Go ahead, order whatever you want." Dave stood still, staring at the large menu above the counter. There were so many options he didn't know where to start. Ribs, pulled pork, side dishes like cornbread and collard greens. Sensing his companion's indecision, Shaq leaned in and spoke gently. "No rush. Pick whatever looks best to you." After taking a deep breath, Dave timidly pointed to the pulled pork sandwich. "I think I'll get that. And, mac and cheese and iced tea," he said, trying not to seem too demanding. Shaq smiled, approving the choice. "Great pick. Mac and cheese is always a good call." Turning to the attendant, he added, "Could you also add a rack of ribs with extra sauce and some cornbread muffins? You can't eat barbecue without cornbread." The attendant jotted down the order, still casting furtive glances at Shaq while announcing the total. Without hesitation, Shaq handed over a crisp $100 bill. "Keep the change," he said, winking at the young man who stammered a thank you as he handed back the receipt with slightly trembling hands. They found a table near the window, and Shaq made sure Dave sat down first. Relaxing in his chair, Shaq smiled and asked, "So what's your story? What brought you here?" Dave was silent for a moment, hesitating, but Shaq's laid-back, welcoming presence made him comfortable enough to share. In a low voice, he began to tell how he lost his job, was evicted, and found himself caught in a cycle of hardships he couldn't overcome. Throughout the account, Shaq remained attentive, nodding occasionally to show he was listening, but not interrupting. When the food arrived, Dave's eyes grew wide upon seeing his plate. The pulled pork sandwich was smothered in sauce and looked incredibly juicy. The mac and cheese shone with a golden, creamy layer, and the sweet tea served in a giant cup looked more like a refreshment for giants. "Dig in," Shaq encouraged him with a gesture. Dave picked up the sandwich and took a generous bite. As he chewed, he closed his eyes for a moment, savoring every morsel. "Wow. This is way better than I imagined," he murmured, still processing the flavor. "Tasty, tender, and with the perfect smoked touch." Shaq laughed, seeing Dave's surprised expression. "I told you, a good barbecue never disappoints." They ate in silence for a while, surrounded by the restaurant's usual bustle, but for the first time in a long time, Dave felt like a normal person, someone who mattered, someone who was seen. The feeling was almost strange, but at the same time comforting. Finishing the last bite of his sandwich, Dave looked at Shaq, his eyes shining with gratitude. I really don't know how to thank you," he said, his voice choked with emotion. Shaq waved his hand dismissively, as if saying there was no need to thank him. "You don't have to thank me. I'm glad I could help. Everyone needs a little push sometimes, right?" Dave slowly nodded, feeling a lump in his throat. It had been years since he'd experienced an act of kindness like that, and for the first time in a very long time, he began to believe that maybe things could get better. But unlike what Dave imagined, Shaq's generosity wouldn't end with that meal. After they finished eating, Shaq leaned back in his chair, folded his arms and smiled. "All right, time for the next stop." "Next stop?" Dave asked, confused. Shaq nodded. "Yeah, to get back on your feet, you need more than just one meal. We're going to give you a complete makeover. How about that?" Dave blinked, still trying to take it in. "Makeover? What do you mean by that?" Shaq smiled. "Self-care, my friend. A haircut, a shave, a hot shower. The full package. There's a place nearby that will take good care of you." For a moment Dave hesitated, looking at his worn clothes and dirty hands. "I don't know, Shaq. I don't think places like that are meant for someone like me." Shaq stopped walking and turned to face Dave seriously. "Hey, never say that," he said firmly. "Everyone deserves to feel good about themselves. You're not someone like me or someone like them. You're you, and that's enough. Trust me." Shaq's words hit Dave unexpectedly. He took a deep breath and nodded, feeling encouraged. "All right, let's go." The walk to the place was short, but each step seemed to heighten Dave's tension. When they arrived, he paused at the sight of the environment, an elegant building with large glass windows and a modern sign. The place looked exclusive, as if it only catered to wealthy people and celebrities. Dave began feeling out of place, but Shaq guided him calmly to the entrance. As soon as they walked in, the receptionist, recognizing Shaq, froze with a huge smile of surprise. "Oh my goodness, welcome. How can we help you today?" Shaq smiled back. "My friend here needs the full treatment: haircut, shave, hot shower. Can you take good care of him?" The receptionist looked at Dave, and her smile softened into a genuinely welcoming gesture. "Of course. We'll take very good care of him," she said warmly. Dave shifted uncomfortably, feeling out of place in the luxurious lobby, but Shaq gave him a gentle nudge of encouragement. "Relax. They're going to treat you well," he said with a smile. "I'll wait out here. Enjoy." Guided by the receptionist, Dave was taken to the back where the treatment began. First, they cut his hair, relieving the weight he carried in each tangled strand. Then came the shave. The barber worked carefully, restoring smoothness to Dave's face. Finally, they handed him a clean, soft towel and led him to the shower. Feeling the hot water on his skin, Dave stayed under the stream for long minutes, letting the accumulated dirt and tension wash away. He felt a lightness he hadn't experienced in years, a nearly new sensation of being clean, renewed. When he finally came out dressed in clean clothes, Dave felt unrecognizable. Returning to the lobby, he found Shaq sitting back, casually scrolling on his phone. As soon as Shaq saw him, he flashed a huge smile. "Look at you, buddy," he exclaimed, standing up and gesturing dramatically. "You look like a Hollywood star. I guarantee they'll be calling you any minute now." Dave couldn't help laughing, something he hadn't done for real in a long time. "I'm not sure about Hollywood," he said, smiling sincerely, "but I do feel like a new person. Thank you, really." Shaq gave him a friendly pat on the shoulder. "That's what I wanted to hear. Now that you're feeling good, how about we take it one step further? How about some shopping?" Dave blinked, surprised. "Shopping? Seriously?" Shaq laughed. "Sure, you need some new clothes to match that look. Believe me, good clothes make a big difference. Let's get what you need." What Shaq did next left Dave and everyone at the spa absolutely speechless. As they headed toward the exit, Dave stopped for a moment and turned to Shaq. There was something he needed to understand. "Why are you doing all this for me?" The question came out in a low but firm tone, loaded with genuine curiosity. Shaq regarded him with a serious expression, but one filled with kindness. "Because I can," he answered simply. "I've been blessed in many ways in life, and I think the best way to repay that is by helping those who deserve it. Sometimes all someone needs is a chance." Dave nodded slowly, feeling his throat tighten with the surge of emotion. He couldn't find words, but he hoped the look in his eyes conveyed the immense gratitude he felt. "Let's go," Shaq said, clapping his hands to lighten the mood. "There's a perfect place to give your look an upgrade." And with that, they headed to the mall. Shaq took Dave to a clothing store, and once inside, handed him a basket. "Grab whatever you need," he said casually. Dave hesitated, feeling his eyes fill with tears. I'm not sure I can let you do all this," he said, his voice trembling. Shaq placed a firm hand on his shoulder. "You're not letting me do anything. I want to do this. Everyone deserves a new beginning." Inspired by Shaq's words, Dave began picking out a few items. 2 pairs of jeans, a few simple shirts, socks, and a pair of sturdy sneakers. Shaq, without saying a word, grabbed a warm jacket and a backpack, adding them to the pile of items at the register. He paid for everything without flinching, even cracking jokes with the clerk, drawing laughter from the store staff. As they left the mall, Dave felt like a new person. His stomach was full, he was clean, and for the first time in a long while, he had more than just the clothes on his back. "Thank you," Dave said, his voice choked with emotion. "I don't know how I can ever repay you." Shaq smiled and patted him on the shoulder. "You don't have to repay me. Just promise me one thing. When you're back on your feet, pay it forward. Help someone else the way I helped you." Dave, tears streaming down his face, nodded. "I promise," he said with conviction. Before saying goodbye, Shaq handed Dave a card with a number written on it. "This is the contact for a shelter. They can help you find a place to stay and connect you to other resources. Remember, you're not alone." In the days that followed, the story of Shaq's generosity went viral. Photos and videos captured by onlookers were widely shared on social media. However, Shaq never spoke publicly about the incident. For him, it wasn't about attention or fame, it was simply about doing the right thing. As for Dave, he used the items and the help Shaq had given him as a starting point. He stayed at the shelter, where he received support finding a job. Over time, he got a part-time position and began saving money to rent his own place. Whenever he felt discouraged, he remembered that day, the act of kindness from Shaq, which proved that even in the darkest moments, a generous gesture can light someone's path. Months later, Dave was on his feet again, rebuilding his life step by step. And he knew that when the time was right, it would be his turn to pass on the kindness that once saved him. When he was finally in a position to help someone else, Dave kept the promise he made to Shaq. He paid forward the kindness, offering the same compassion he once received, and this time it was he who changed the life of someone who needed a fresh start. Small but determined steps marked Dave's journey toward a better life. The shelter to which Shaq had referred him turned out to be more than just a roof and a warm bed. They provided counseling, personal development workshops, and reintegration programs for the job market. Seeing a real opportunity to rebuild his life, Dave took every chance with determination. He attended the workshops, participated in the programs, and made the most of every resource offered to move forward. In the end, it wasn't just about the meal he received, the new clothes, or the money Shaq spent. It was about being seen and treated with dignity, like someone who mattered. That simple yet profound gesture gave Dave back something he had lost a long time ago: hope for the future.